Have I ever told you how many stories start off that way? And how often is it that a story is where you really focus? Good morning. I'm Aaric Eisenstein, the Avian Rebbe, and I teach Jewish wisdom seen in the beauty of birds. This morning we're going to be looking at communication, at storytelling, whether it's something you write or you say, or even these goofy videos. But the idea is that communication, good or bad, lies at the root of so much of what we experience in life. And the goal today is to learn how we can do it a little bit better. You ready? Let's head out to the trails and we'll find a lesson.
I have recently had the honor of working with a girl, now a young woman, on her bat mitzvah preparation. And the Torah portion that she was assigned is Ki Tisa, which is the section of Exodus that deals with Moses going up to the mountain to get the 10 Commandments, spending 40 days there, coming back down, seeing that the people have created the golden calf, and then all of the aftermath that ensues. It is a very, very tough portion, the kind that calls into question so many of our assumptions about Moses, about the people, about the relationship with God, and even about ourselves. And as I thought about this portion, working with her, what I realized was that so much of the problems that we encounter in this portion really just come down to miscommunication. The simple version is that Moses said to the people, "I will be back in 40 days. He counted starting from tomorrow. The people started counting from today. And when Moses showed up a day late, it was too late. The people had already thought that Moses wasn't coming." The rest of the story follows. This morning, what I'd like to do, as I was walking through the park, I started thinking about communication. So let's look at some communication traps, some challenges into which we all fall, and see if maybe the lessons of Moses and the lessons of the birds in the park can shed a little illumination on how it is that we ought to communicate today and in our own lives. First, I want to look at a kestrel and a hawk. Both of these are spectacularly beautiful birds, but the same gorgeous, regal nature of these birds that makes them so beautiful can also sometimes make them overawing. Think for a minute, certainly if you were a small creature that was the prey for one of these birds, you wouldn't think that they're so wonderful. But even for us, when we look at these birds and we compare them with some of the others that are perhaps more drab or more sedate or not quite as imposing as these magnificent raptors, there's a question of awe. And I think the lesson that we're to take is that we need to meet people where they are. There is a tendency, particularly with interpersonal dynamics and power relationships, where parents to children, or teachers to students, or bosses to subordinates, the communication can be overawing. It can be not directed at a peer level or even an appropriate level that conveys communication, but without intending to, can be almost bullying. It's something that we need to be aware of. And if you think about Moses coming down from having communicated with God for 40 days, imagine how Moses must have had to ratchet down his expectations and his form of communication to deal with other people, other members of his community. Take a look at this green-winged teal. First, we're going to see it paddling across the water. It's exactly the way in our mind's eye we expect to see this kind of duck. It's the context that we're prepared and expecting to see. Now take a look at the same bird, but it's foraging in the mudflats. And this is seeing something that we know out of context. This isn't the kind of place that we would expect to see a duck. They go there, of course, but if you were to ask somebody in the bird world, what would you expect to see in the mudflats? They might say something like sandpipers or an ibis. There are different birds that in the popular expectation would be in that particular environment. When you take communication out of context, when you have an interaction with people in a way that's unexpected, have you ever bumped into somebody at the grocery store that you knew from a different place and had trouble putting a face and a name back together? This is exactly what I'm describing. Context matters, and the right message delivered in the right time and in the right place is an enormous component of the ability to convey actual communication.
How are we doing so far? I hope that the two examples we've seen already have helped to improve your communication skills. And if you stay until the end of the video, I'll give you 2 action suggestions, very concrete ideas that you can use to enhance your communications. So, hit like and subscribe below because this is going to be a 2-part video, and I'll look forward to seeing you at the end. Ready? Back out to the trails.
Now consider timing. Look at the first northern shoveler here. The bird looks flat and gray, and the water is uninteresting. Everything about this photo looks muted. It is earlier in the morning, and the light has not yet developed. The clouds are still too present, and the message, the beauty of the bird, it just isn't there. Now let's look at this same bird seen in later light. Look how beautiful it is. There's color and texture in the water. The colors of the bird absolutely pop. You get a completely different message from the same bird in the same place, the same water, simply later in the day. The time had to ripen. And how often have we had messages that we wanted to convey to somebody where we were, shall we say, premature or also too late? And the important message that we were trying to convey didn't come across in the way that we wanted because the time wasn't right. Clarity of communication is absolutely critical. Look at this first photo. It's a mixed flock. There's all kinds of birds in this scene, and it's purposefully chaotic to illustrate what it is that I'm trying to tell you. This is a real thing. This is what we see when we go out to the park. There are different species and the focal points and the blur and all of the different things. This is a hard photo to understand. It's the kind of thing that our mind doesn't like because we can't latch onto anything particular and say, okay, I get it. I understand what it is that I'm supposed to take away from this photo. Compare it with this photo. Here, the sandpipers, again, several of them, but the sandpipers are all very clear. The message's intent is obvious. You know immediately what it is that you're supposed to see, how you're supposed to feel. It is consonant with the way that our minds absorb imagery and the way that our minds absorb messages. That sense of consonance and clarity is absolutely critical for communication. You have to anticipate the way it is that your listener or your reader is going to absorb a message, not just what you want to say, but how their mind is oriented towards receiving it.
I hope that you enjoyed this morning's interrupted walk. We wandered, and now it's time to get 2 action suggestions that you can use in your daily life to enhance your communication skills. Ready? Action suggestion number 1. Think back to a miscommunication that you had with somebody. There was a fight, there was a misunderstanding, there was some kind of hurt, frankly, that came about because of something. And what I'd like you to do is take the examples that we went through today and see if maybe you can't diagnose what went wrong and where. So, was there a question of level setting? Was something out of context? Was there a timing problem or a clarity problem? All of these are the kinds of things that can lead to hurt. See if you can do that. Go back. Diagnose what went wrong. You're playing it in your head anyway. You might as well get something out of it. Put it down on paper and see what you can learn from it. Because, action suggestion number 2, let's think prospectively. Think about an upcoming communication that you've got. Maybe it's something at work or at school. Maybe it's a tough conversation with a friend or a family member. Map it out. Not just what you want to say, but how you want to deliver your message. So for example, if it's something that's really important where you really need to get into specific details with somebody, maybe text messages aren't the right answer. Maybe sitting down next to each other at a table and looking at papers or looking into each other's eyes is more important than simply doing something that's fast or easy. There are conversations that naturally belong in a certain venue. Think about that. Think about the medium. Think about the timing. If you can have a little bit of flexibility and maybe somebody's already in a bad mood, this isn't the day to bring up the tough issue. Let it wait. It'll be there when it's ripe. My point being that in looking at the things that have happened to you and the things that are going to occur in the future, there are ways to start being more explicit and more intentional about your communication that will work for you. I certainly hope so. Come back next week. As I say, this is the first part of a 2-part video. Communication's important and it merits a full treatment. In the meantime, get out there, see what's beautiful, wander, wonder, and as always, be grounded, fly high.